How are you? This is Oliver Fernandez with The Imperfect Entrepreneur. And one of my mentors always tells us that a confused mind always finds failure. And in business, a confused business will always find failure. So growing up, I always heard a lot of stories about me, being a very strong-willed kid. And now I have two very strong-willed kids. Like, my daughter wanted to go into the barbecue place with me yesterday, and I was like, oh no, let me just run in there real quick. And my wife was in the car, so I just hopped out, and I heard her crying when I left, but I just figured, she'd stop. But I got back in the car, she was still crying, her brother was crying, and it just reminded me of how strong-willed she is, how convicted she is with wanting to do something. She cried the whole way home and didn't want to get out of the car. And yes, it's something that we gotta work on, definitely. But at the same time, that's what entrepreneurship is about. You have to be so convicted about what you're doing that you're willing to cry and grind and put in the work over long periods of time, even when somebody else tells you no and when somebody else tells you it's not possible. So I loved it. I just think we need to just tweak it a little bit and massage that so it comes out at the right time and in the right sequence. So, as we're growing the business, we're expanding, and we want to get into different things. And getting into different things is a good thing, but at the same time can be a bad thing. And just recently, we've had two instances where actually it's three instances where trying to get into something new has been a complete disaster. So incident number one was, at the flooring store, we're looking to grow, and we're doing a lot of business, more than we've ever done before, right? When we first bought this business, it was a $4 or $5 million business per year, and now we're doing like $12 million. Well, in buying that business, you start to think once we get to a certain size, we can start, stocking up on materials, and then, we could buy it in bulk, and then you could have that savings. And yes, that is a cool business model, and it's a business model that works for a lot of people, right? Like the Shaws of the world, like the big manufacturers, the NRFs. These are all companies that we buy materials from. They do that. That's exactly their business model. They are super clear on what their business model is. It's like buy low, sell high, buy in bulk, sell in increments, buy in bulk, sell in increments. And that's cool, and that works for them, and they have it totally set up, and they have the finances to do all that stuff. They're just totally built for that. Whereas PQF and our company, we're in the service business, right? Like when people come in and they want their floors done with low hassle, they want professionals doing it so they don't have to do it over again. They want service. They want people following up with them when they get the estimate. They want people following up with them when the material gets here. They want people, at their house confirming measurements, making sure everything is tight. Like, they want service. And that's what we do well. That's what we excel in. And what we do is we purchase the materials, and then we charge a markup, and then we pass it on to our customer. And that's what we do well. We do really well with servicing the customer, getting them taken care of, and making sure they're comfortable in their decision, and they're comfortable with the end product, and they're happy with it, and there's no back and forth, and it's just hassle free. So that's what we do well. Well, we thought, and we got into trying to do what like the big brands do, and we stocked up on like a year's worth of adhesive, and we stocked up on like a year's worth of these different things that are a pad, and like those things are great, and we use them, and we go through them. But like now all of a sudden our cash which is cash is really important in running a business, is now tied up into those items and those products instead of what we're really good at and tying our cash up into servicing the customer, making sure the customer is taken care of. So right now we're going through a little growing pains, and that's good. That's fine. Like there's one thing that's guaranteed and is promised, is that, and this starts with me, is that we're not perfect. But the cool thing about us is that once we understand what happened and what went wrong, and we're going to do that work. We're going through pain. We're not just going to sit there and like at the end of the pain, like, oh, everything's good, or why we're going through. We're not going to say like, hey, how did we get there? We are going to ask ourselves those questions. We're going to ask ourselves, how did we get there? And we're going to come to the conclusion. And I'm not going to, be a victim. I'm going to find things that we can control. And the thing that we can control is understanding and being super clear on the business model we're in. We don't need to buy things in bulk. That's why we partner with the NRFs and the Shaws and all those big companies, because they can buy things in bulk and we can just buy it from them and then charge our markup and pass it right on to the customer. Like spending $100 or $200,000 and trying to save 8%, that's not our business model. Our business model is finding customers that can afford it, servicing them so that they want to buy our products and they're willing to pay our markup on that product. So getting super clear on that is not being clear on it caused us a lot of pain, but now that we're super clear on it, we're not going to buy in bulk, and we're not going to buy for a year's worth of stuff. We'll buy maybe max 1, 2, 3 months. So we have the stuff. We're not like scrambling and we don't have it, but we're never going to stock up big time on products anymore. We're going to focus on what we're good at. And if we're going to stock up on anything, we're going to stock up on team members to help service that customer. Why? Because we're super clear on what we do and what we are as an organization. And what we are as an organization is a company that services the crap out of our customer. And by servicing the crap out of our customer, they're willing and they're excited to pay the price. Because anybody can go to Home Depot and buy, materials, or anybody can just go online and search for things now. But like, why do they not do that? Because they want to be serviced. They want to have a hassle-free, professional, elite installation. And that's what we can do. And that's what we do really well. So that's example number one of when you're not clear and you have confusion in business, you're going to find failure. And we found some failure and we're going through the pain of it right now, but we're going to correct it and we're going to tweak and we're going to pivot and not make that mistake again. We made it once. We're not going to make it again. And the reason why we're not going to make it again is because we're clear. We did the work, in the analysis of why are we in this situation right now? And that's the reason why. And we're going to make that adjustment. Example number 2 of when you're not clear in business, you will find failure. And I love investing in real estate. I love investing in multifamily real estate, which is basically single families stacked on top of each other, providing housing for hundreds of people in one property, right? And I love that stuff because even if we lose 10 tenants, we're still 90% occupied. So it's really stable. And the business is big enough and it's an industry that already has an operator built into it. So the operator is like the property managers, right? And I'm not saying every property manager is going to squeeze every nickel and dime, but the markets that we're in, my partners have a property management company in those markets. So they're on top of the operations to be able to squeeze the nickels and dimes so that the business model can move forward without my full engagement. So for me, I love construction, but like I also love real estate. But the construction that I'm really good at is government construction, not multifamily construction, right? And like I can be good at it, but just the prices are not there. And I already know this. And we bid off on a little project. We're like, oh, let's consider, maybe this multifamily stuff. You can get awards like this, whereas maybe the government, there's a longer lead time, right? Like sometimes it could be a year before you get a project with the government. Whereas if you make the right relationship with a multifamily operator or a multifamily person that has real estate, like you can get a project tomorrow. So like, let's as we're building out the team and we have more resources, let's see how this market can help us. Trying to be optimistic about it. And it's like, man, we're in this job right now, and I'm like, we just got to limit our risk in here, and we're never going to do one of these jobs again. Especially like a smaller one of these jobs, because there's the reason why we're not in it is because the money is not the same. and I know that, and we still went down that road. But again, when you're not clear on the business model you're in, and we were clear on it, but like we were trying to grow, and we were trying to get creative and add like a new revenue stream, but it's a totally different revenue stream, right? It's a totally different business model. It's a lot of it's about the bottom line, and a lot of stuff for the government is about the bottom line, but there is the caveat that like not everybody can do government work. So like you start to weed out people. Whereas like the multifamily stuff, we got, we charged what we would have charged on a government project, but the scope of work wasn't as tight as it normally is on a government project. So now all of a sudden, we're having these unforeseen conditions, and it's more difficult to go back and try to like validate like the additional cost, because it's the scope of work wasn't as tight. So like going into new ventures is always going to have its own challenges. So like that's why being clear on where you're going and understanding the pitfalls of those new business models is super important. And it just is another reminder of like, man, that's why we're a government contractor. That's how we're going to get to 100 million, is by being a government contractor. Not trying to dabble in these other little, other little niches. No, we're going to become the company we're going to be by focusing on and being a government contractor. We already are doing 99% of our revenue here, and the market is massive. So let's not try to get cute and add like the new little revenue streams. And I'm telling this to you, but I'm really reminding myself about this at the same time. It's like, don't try to get cute, Oliver, and try to add these new revenue streams. Stay focused, right? Stay focused on the government projects. Stay focused on building that revenue, that business model, the team, the everything that's going to be needed to get to $100 million. And I'm in. The third thing about when you're not clear about the business model you're in, you find failure. And a couple years ago, I'd say in a couple years ago, because I'm trying to make myself feel better, but it was really like a year ago. My son, actually, no, it was 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago. When my daughter was born, there was this butcher shop that opened up in Georgetown, and like, man, I loved their meats. I loved everything about it. I loved the person operating that butcher shop. And we built a relationship, and then that relationship turned into him having another opportunity to open up another butcher shop in a location that Amazon was getting ready to double down in and build all their offices. And then all of a sudden there was going to be all these people growing in there. And I got excited about that. And I don't know how, and we had purchased the other flooring construction business, and we had some success with it. So I thought I was being cute again. And I was like, oh, I can buy businesses in other markets and be successful. And it's like, Oliver, dude, you're a construction guy. Like, the other market was a construction business. It was flooring. I understand that marketplace. It was also a business that had been in business for 30 years. It already had revenue stream. It already had customers. It had all these things. Whereas now this new butcher shop, it was basically, from scratch. The cool part about it, and the thing that got me excited about it, was there was a construction element of like building out the space. And then all of a sudden it was negotiating with a massive landlord, and there was like a REIT, and here I am telling you the good things, because even in failure, you have to find the things that did work, the things that were positive about the situation. So I was negotiating, like a lease with a massive landlord, and part of that negotiation, I was communicating with these really high level people, and I'm like, man, that's how these big organizations grow. Is they grow because they can recruit and attract these high performing individuals that can negotiate on their behalf without the owner being there. So they're negotiating this lease, and there's this back and forth, and And it was exciting because, they were going to give us this huge build out budget. And I was the construction guy came out, and I was like, oh yeah, we can go in there and buy this thing out and do it for less than what they're giving us. And then we'll be able to take the other money and then finance the rest of the business. But like at the same time, now all of a sudden there's all this work that needs to go into building that business. There's, we had to do meet with the designer and do the layout and all this other stuff. And that's not what we do. So I'm like, month 1, we're going through it. Month 2, we're going through it with the design team. And we got like 95% done with the drawings. And I'm like, dude, Oliver, I was confused in that moment, and I made a decision to sign a lease for a butcher shop. And I'm not a butcher. My partner was a butcher, but I'm not the butcher. This is just a distraction. Even if it goes well, it's still a distraction from what I'm trying to build. And we're building a $100 million construction company that does government work. So what did I have to do? I literally called everybody and let them know my heart's not in it. I'm not moving forward. I'm going to pay the breakup fee in the lease, whatever it is. And like, so glad that I negotiated the breakup fee to literally be like 20% of what it could have been, because it should have been like over $500,000, and now it's going to be closer to like the 80 grand mark. But it's still just stupidity, and it's my own stupidity that I brought on myself because I wasn't clear about where I was going. And you have to be super clear about where you're going. And if you're not super clear about where you're going, you will find failure. And I found failure in that situation, and I have to pay for it. But in that paying for it and that learning, it's like, again, stay super focused. Like now, if that same situation would come up, I'd say, hey, that's a great opportunity. That sounds like a really exciting opportunity, because it did sound like an exciting opportunity, but it's not the right opportunity for me. Why? Because I'm building a $100 million construction company that does government contracting. Super focused on where I'm going. And if you're not clear on where you're going, you will find failure. And at that moment, yes, the butcher shop could have been successful, but I found failure. So in business and in life, if you're confused about something, you will find failure. So what's the opposite of that? Let's get clear on where we want to go, and then we will find success. And stay focused to that and convicted to that. Similar to how my daughter, she cried for literally 5 to 10 minutes going all the way back home because I didn't bring her into the barbecue place. And then she didn't want to get out of the car because she was so convicted on that barbecue place and going inside and seeing it. And I'm going to be inspired by that. And I'm going to stay convicted to where I'm going. With that, let's go out there and build our legacy. Let's roll.